and get my slides set up and make sure everybody can see it. I can see you. Get this shared. And Chad, give me a quick feedback. Is there a black box on the top of the screen?
Not a No, not a black box, but there's a border around your thing, but I got your slides up. I can see it.
Okay, let me see. Let me get this. Oh, there we go. Okay, let me do one more thing for a quick setup. Okay. Okay, awesome. So I was sitting at the kitchen table. Whoop, come back. Here we go. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my parents, and my dad was telling us about how they had cake for him at work that day to celebrate his 30-year work anniversary. So 30 years, same company, same job. And the conversation flowed, and I just kind of blurted out, "So when are you going to retire?" And his demeanor changed. He sat back in his chair and he said, "I can't retire right now because the markets are down." I had this mix of confusion and disbelief because this was a man that had worked for 30 years in a physically demanding, dirty job in a sewage processing plant. And he had been taught his whole life to invest in stocks and mutual funds, and that would provide for his retirement. But this was 2009. The markets were rattled, and he was now handcuffed to his job. I remember clearing the dishes with my mom, and all I could think about was, I don't know what I'm going to do different, but I'm not going to have my retirement years taken away from me like that. Fast forward, I followed the traditional path at first. I went to college, I got a good job, I moved around the country climbing the corporate ladder until one night, my husband and I were living in Southern California, and he invites me to an investing class. So I show up and I find out that it's a real estate investing class. And I go up to him and I'm like, "What are we doing here? Like, I'm not going to invest in real estate." And he's like, "No, just stay, just listen." But I really doubted being there because I didn't know anybody that invested in real estate. It was completely foreign to me, but I stayed. And that 2-hour class literally changed my life. It empowered me with knowledge of how real estate can provide financial growth and security for the future. I learned words in that 2 hours that they didn't teach me in engineering school, like passive income, cash flow, assets, net worth. And I remember looking at my husband and being like, "This is it. This is what's going to make a difference for us, and we can do this." But I drove home that night thinking, man, I wish my dad would have had this kind of opportunity because it could have kept him from working for 35 years in that physically demanding job. Everyone has a person in their life that you've seen work hard and not get the financial outcome that they expected. For me, it was my dad. For you, it might be a colleague, a spouse, grown children, a friend. Whoever it was, ultimately, at the end of the day, their cash flow from their investments wasn't enough. I started investing 10 years ago, and the main reason I started investing was to build cash flow to provide a secure retirement and to provide secure income. Out of all the different ways I've invested, mortgage notes has provided the most cash flow in the least amount of time with the least amount of effort. My name is Emily Courtright, and I believe that everyone on this call has the ability to create massive amounts of cash flow by investing in mortgage notes. And so today, for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to cover the 3 most important topics that you need to know to invest in notes: principles, process, and preparation. Before we get in, a quick disclaimer: This session is for education purposes only. I'm going to show some case studies of the notes that I bought and some notes that my colleagues have purchased, but just know individual results may vary. So let's jump into principles. And the reason we're talking about this today is because there are some fundamental reasons why notes are so powerful. Warren Buffett says that if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, then you'll work until you die. I'll show you at the end, I'll show you my deposits from my note investments just over the past and I've only been investing in notes for a little over 9 months. And already every few days, a deposit comes into my account. Notes are a great way to make money while you sleep. The other sad reality is that half of Americans have no retirement savings. They were either told to invest in the traditional forms, stocks and mutual funds like my dad, or they've handed over their retirement accounts to financial advisors that are supposed to grow it for them. But I'm here today to tell you, don't be most people, because most people are not prepared for their retirement. I am a strong believer that you have to take your retirement and your investments into your own hands, because you will always grow them better than somebody else. So why learn notes? They can create cash flow, which is so important. They can build up your retirement account very quickly, and I'm going to show you how I'm building mine. And they can create long-term legacy and wealth for you and your family. Robert Kiyosaki says the most important word in the world of money is cash flow. And notes provide monthly, consistent cash flow. And so when you ask people like, well, why aren't you investing? Because we all know we need cash flow, but they say, oh, I just don't have the time. I don't have the time. And that's very common. And when my first 5 years of investing, I flipped houses, I bought rental properties, I wholesaled properties, and it was a full-time job. It essentially was a grind, finding the next deal, always shopping at Home Depot, fixing up the houses. Not everybody has time for this. So today, I'm going to show you a way to get those kind of returns without having to buy a rental property, without having to flip houses, and without dealing with tenants and toilets. Because a lot of investors today are struggling with finding good deals, profiting in uncertain markets, and making money for both today and over time. So if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be the lender on this beautiful home in Fort Lauderdale, I would have thought you were crazy. But just like 10 years ago, I had a training change my life. A little over a year ago, I had another training change my life. And that training was on notes. And now I am proud to say that I am the lender on this beautiful property. Have I ever been there? No. Will I ever plan to go there? Nope. But their mortgage payment comes to me every single month. So notes allow you to invest in homes that you may not be able to afford the whole house, but you can afford the note on it. And this could be a great thing to add to your portfolio. So let's move on to the next topic and let's talk some more details. Let's talk about the process. And the reason we're talking about this today is because mortgage notes are really one of the best kept secrets in the investing world, because not very many people know about them. And one thing that's really cool is that at KW Wealth, we talk about them a lot. And because our mentor, Brett Tanner, who is pretty much Gary Keller's right-hand man for investing, Brett does a lot of note investing. So he shares his knowledge with us and pours into us and really encourages us to expand our horizons in the investing world. So we're going to talk about 3 note investing strategies today. And the first one we're going to talk about is buying existing performing notes. Now, that's kind of a mouthful, so let me break that down. First, we are buying existing notes. So these are mortgages that have already been originated. They might have been paid on for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, but they are already in existence when we're talking this category. They are performing, meaning the person is paying their mortgage. They're paying every month. So with this first category we're going to talk about, we are buying existing mortgages that are getting paid every month. Now let's take a step back and let's just remind ourselves what's involved in a mortgage. So a mortgage note is basically a set of terms of an agreement. You've got your loan amount, you've got your interest rate, and you have your amortization. And amortization could be 20 years, 25, 30 years, 15 years. All of that boils down to a monthly payment. And the homeowner is responsible for paying that monthly payment every month for the next, say, 30 years. So when you buy a mortgage note on the secondary market, one, you're buying a long-term cash flow stream, so a long-term payback. But it is also secured by a piece of real estate, what we call collateral. So I bought the mortgage that this Fort Lauderdale homeowner pays every single month. Let's kind of break it down a little bit more into a visual. So let's say this note has 20 years left. I buy the note, January comes along, I get my first payment, then February, then March, then April. Every single month, I'm collecting the principal and interest portion of the mortgage. So basically, this is an investment strategy where you work one time and you get long-term cash flow in exchange for that. For me, that's really important because we'll talk about this a little bit more. Some of my other investments aren't cash flowing as well these days. And so to be able to buy an investment that cash flows from day one is really critical. So let's look at a case study from one of the notes that I purchased. So this is a house in San Antonio, Texas, and it's valued at $130,000. What I like to see personally is I like to see a lot of equity with the homeowner. So in this case, the homeowner has 58% of equity in their home, which means that the mortgage is only 42%. And so this note, here's the numbers. The note balance is $54,000 at an 8.5% interest, and it has 12 and a half more years. So let's say this was a 15-year note and they've paid on it for 2.5 years. And it comes with a $585 a month payment. Now, the lender on this note can choose to sell the note at a discount. And you say, well, why would the lender want to sell the note? Well, the lender wants their money now. And me as the investor, I want my cash flow over time. And so it's all about a marketplace of supply and demand. I usually, when a note sells on the secondary market, the return needs to be, say, 10 to 12% or more. And so with an 8.5% interest rate, I can't pay $54,000 for this note. So I'm going to buy it at a discount. I'm going to show you what I bought this one for. But the visual is that there's 12 and a half years of $585 every single month, 150 payments worth. Instead of paying $54,000, I buy this note for $46,000. And what that means is that I bought it at an $8,000 discount. Now, does the homeowner pay any less? No. Does the homeowner even know that I bought it at a discount? Nope, he doesn't. If the homeowner sells the house tomorrow, they still owe the $54,000 loan amount. I would get, if they sold it tomorrow, I would get an $8,000 check at closing for the discount that I bought it at. So that discount is really a cool part of the whole transaction. Now, if this is their forever home and they stay in this house the next 12 and a half years and they pay off the mortgage, then that $8,000 discount is essentially realized throughout the monthly payments. So if they were to pay it off over the next 12 and a half years, month after month, I would be bringing in $87,750, Overall, it's an 11.7% return for investing money today and just letting it cash flow every single month. So let's talk about risk and cushion, because personally, I like to buy notes where the cost of the note, this is my ideal situation, the cost of the note is 50% or less of the home's value. To me, that's most ideal. So the house is worth 130. I would consider a really good note purchase anything 65,000 or less. So I bought this one at 46. And what that means is that if for some reason this homeowner stops paying, one, I have a couple different options. I'm the lender. I have all of the negotiating power. So I could do what's called a loan modification. I could say, you know what? You can't afford $585 a month anymore. How about we do $450 and we extend the note out another 10 years? I could file a foreclosure. I could go through the foreclosure process. And if I get this house back and the homeowner has damaged it, I could sell it real quick, investor special as is. I could sell it for 100, I could sell it for 80, I could sell it for 60. I could sell it for under half of its value and still make, if I sold it for 60, I'd make an additional $14,000 profit. So that's why I like to see some cushion in there. Now, this doesn't happen every time. For example, I'm buying a note now that's around a 70% of the home's value, but everything else has to line up. And so we'll talk a little bit about criteria towards the end, but those are just some of the, you want to have some cushion in there just in case. And buying the note at a discount and looking at the cost of the note versus the property value, that's one of the ways I judge the notes that I buy. So this is one of the coolest things that I learned, and this strategy literally changed my life. So I want to prepare you, sit down, because this is going to be awesome. Because there is a way to leverage the notes that you buy. So let's say you have a note and you buy the whole note. So you buy the next 20 years, 30 years of payments. You have the option and the ability to sell a portion of the note. You could sell the front payments. And you could sell however much you wanted. You could sell this much. You could sell this much. You could sell 100% of it if you wanted. This, and I want you to write this word down. This is called a partial. This is called a partial note. So when you take a full note and you say, okay, I'm going to sell a portion of it, I'm going to sell a partial. That's kind of the industry term for it. And I want to give you another visual. Partials are like pizzas. So if you think about a pizza, you can go to Little Caesars and you can still get a large pizza for $6. And then let's say you take it to your kid's soccer game and some of their friends want to buy some slices from you. And so you end up selling 3 slices of the pizza for $2 a piece. Now, what have you done here? You have essentially gotten all your money back and you still own a half a pizza. Like you still get to eat half a pizza and you didn't pay you didn't pay anything for it. This is how a partial works. You can pretty much get all your money back and you still own half the note. Now, the only difference here is that instead of being able to, like, I could eat my pizza right now, for the note, you may have to wait 5, 10, 15 years to take over that back end of the note. But you still own it and you still own that discount that you bought the note at, which is really powerful. So let me go through an example, because this is exactly what I did in my retirement account. So I took that note on the San Antonio home, $585 a month. I bought the 12 and a half years for $46,000. And then this is what blew my mind when I saw examples like this. I sold 8.5 years for $45,000. So how much do I have left in it? I have $1,000 left in the deal, and I still own two things. I own the back 4 years of payments, and I own the $8,000 discount that I bought the note at. So if this homeowner sells their house tomorrow, I will make $8,000, and then I'll still owe my passive investor their $45,000. So you say, well, who would pay $45,000 for 8.5 years? Well, a passive investor would. And this is somebody that is not the active investor, right? I consider myself an active investor. I'm out there, I'm investing, I'm buying notes, I'm building my wealth. The avatar of a passive investor is maybe a hardworking professional, a W-2 job, somebody who doesn't have time to manage their investments. They don't have time to go look for investment opportunities. They just want to get a good return and say, here's my money, put it to work. Now, in this exact example, this investor is a full-time pilot, and she bought this note with her self-directed retirement account. So this $45,000, 8.5 year, she bought with her retirement account. Now my retirement account owns the rest of it. So my retirement account bought it from the beginning and then sold a portion of it to somebody else's retirement account. Now you say, what kind of returns would this passive investor look for? And in this case, it was 7%. And that's actually, we've done about 7 or 8 partials like this. And that 7 is really the average, what we're giving our passive investors these days. Now, another kind of avatar for this passive investor is if you've had a client that has come to you, and this may not be as applicable in your market, but we have clients that come to us and they say, hey, I want to go buy a rental property. I want it to cash flow at like 8 to 10% per year. And you kind of look at them like, yeah, right. Like those don't exist anymore on the MLS. And so this is a way to potentially service those clients that have come to you and said, hey, I'm looking for that great real estate deal. And let me know the next time you find it. And you just kind of in the back of your head, you're like, yeah, right. Like what you're looking for doesn't exist. Well, it may not exist in the rental market that you're in, but it exists in the note market. And so keep that in mind, that these could be potential clients that have come to you wanting to invest, but their criteria just doesn't align with the real estate in your market. So you say, well, the passive investor is getting 7%. So what's the active investor getting? Like, what am I getting? Well, it's kind of hard to calculate, and I'm going to tell you why. But overall, my return is very, very high. And the reason it's hard to calculate is because what I did was I paid $46,000 for the note. I get $45,000 back in my account, and I'm going to go buy another note with that $45,000. I'm going to go buy another cash flow stream that brings in another $585 a month. So now I'm going to own the 4 years of this note, the discount, and then another cash flow stream, which is why it's like mind-blowing how high these returns can get. Because when you understand this kind of strategy, you can literally skyrocket your returns. Your returns can be double and triple digits annualized return because you are recycling the same funds over and over again, but still maintaining ownership of each note. So this was a really cool concept that has literally changed my life. Let's talk about another strategy with notes. And in this one, it's creating private mortgage notes. And another word for this is just owner financing. And this may not be as applicable because it's more so with lower dollar prices, lower dollar homes, but listen to these examples because these are going to blow your mind. So a survey came out recently that said the cost of owning a home is compared to renting, is at the highest difference than it has been in the past 20 years. So it's almost $1,000 more expensive per month to own than rent in the standard American market. So what does this mean? Well, this means that if you have a rental property that rents for $2,000 a month, if you were to sell that house owner financing, you could sell it for up to $3,000 a month in seller financing and be able to capture additional income. So I'm going to show you an example of how I did this in practice. This was a rental property that I own here in Fort Worth, Texas. I bought it back in 2016. So I've owned it for years. It's been a rental property, the same tenant the whole time. She just moved out early 2023. And as I was going through this note training and KW Wealth, the idea came to mind that why don't I sell this owner financing? Why don't I create my own private note? So instead of selling it traditionally, I put my sign in the yard and I said, this home is only for sale with owner financing. I want to be the bank. I want to be the lender. And so I found a great owner financing buyer. I sold it for $220,000 with a $20,000 down payment. Now she's getting charged 9.75% interest for 30 years. And you say, well, that seems kind of high. But in the owner financing realm, a lot of these buyers can't qualify for traditional mortgages. So they have to pay a high interest rate in order to get into the home ownership pool because they can't qualify for traditional financing. So to go with owner financing, they sacrifice to pay a higher rate. Overall, the monthly payment on this, the P&I payment, $1,713 a month. Now I want to show you the comparison between if I would have kept this as a rental versus me being the lender. So if I would have held this as a rental, it would have brought in about $1,900 a month. Then I would have had expenses, taxes, insurance, vacancies, maintenance, all of the things. And I would have profited about $1,226 a month. And that's before mortgage, things like that. But that's the profit. By being the bank, the only fee that I would have to pay every month is a loan servicing fee. And the loan servicing fee is because I'm not actually the one that collects the payments. There is a professional third-party company that collects the payments from the borrower. They handle the tax escrows, the insurance escrows, the escrow adjustment letters, the amortization table, everything. They do all of that. And that's about $20 a month. But when you originate the loan, you get to negotiate who's going to pay for that. So I actually negotiated that the borrower is going to pay that loan servicing fee every single month. So I actually am bringing in $1,713 a month on this. It's almost a $500 difference by being the lender than what I would have made by being the landlord. So $500 a month more in income that I'm realizing today. And then some people say, well, you sold the house, you're not going to get any more appreciation. And I say, yeah, I'm not going to get any more appreciation, but over the next 5 years, I will make over $100,000 in interest because of this note. So yeah, I've given up the appreciation, but I'm gaining $100,000 in interest over the next 5 years. And honestly, I don't think the home is going to appreciate more than $100,000 in the next 5 years. So this is a really cool strategy that if you do own a property, you may want to consider, and you're ready to sell or you're burnt out landlord, you may want to consider selling it owner financing if that's done in your market. So let's talk about the third strategy. This one is buying non-performing loans. So what does that mean? Well, we're buying them on the secondary market, just like we did the first strategy. They're already in place. The mortgages are already in place, but this time they're non-performing, meaning the people are not paying and they may not have paid for years. And so these notes come for sale too on the secondary market. And so let's look at some of the statistics. Back when COVID happened, you can kind of see the drop off in foreclosure related filings in March-ish of 2020. Well, those foreclosure filings didn't necessarily go away. They just kind of got swept under the rug for a few years. And so lenders are finally waking up and saying, oh yeah, that loan you haven't paid on since like 2018, I really need you to start paying on that now, or I'm going to foreclose on you. So a lot of these haven't even been foreclosed on. Plus, there's additional loans that have gone into foreclosure or have stopped paying since COVID that are now starting that process. So we call the loans that were already delinquent before COVID, we call those legacy loans. And then there are new loans that are defaulting since COVID. So the numbers of these non-performing notes available continue to increase. And a lot of times they have been delinquent since even before COVID, but they just kind of got swept under the rug because nobody could foreclose on them during COVID. So I want to show you a case study of one that we did. And this is a house in Wilmington, Delaware, a little row home. Have I ever been there? Nope. Will I ever go there? Nope. And the value of this home, $110,000. The legal balance of the loan is only $33,000. So we talked about that cushion, right? It's under 50% of the house's value. Now, they hadn't paid this note since 2017. So this is one of those legacy loans that I just talked about. But what I liked when I was looking at this was it's a divorce case and they're not living there anymore. And so both the husband and the wife have moved out, which to me means they don't need it. Like we're not kicking anybody to the streets. They both have found other places. It's just a matter of selling the house or paying off the note. And so we bought this all in for $23,000. So, and actually when I went to, we're going to talk about the note broker later. When I went to the note broker, I said, I want a little non-performing note because I want something affordable that if for some reason the whole thing messes up and I lose all my money, like I'm still going to survive. And so this was one that they identified would be a great fit for me. And it was $23,000 all in. I had the opportunity to make $10,000. So let's look at the timeline. The previous lender who sold the note had started talking about foreclosure back in April. I bought the note in July at $23,000. And within about a week or two, we get a hold of the foreclosure attorneys, and the wife's foreclosure attorney calls the husband's foreclosure attorney and says, get this thing off the books. We don't want our name on it. And the husband's foreclosure attorney comes to us and says, will you negotiate the payoff? He says, how about 25,000? And we're like, nope. And we're like, how about 30? And they were like, no. And they're like, how about 28,000? And we're like, 28,000. We're like, if you pay within the next 30 days, we will take $28,000 as a negotiated payoff. We're the lender. We have all the negotiating rules. And so within 1 month, it was paid off. We got $28,000 wired back to our bank account. Whoops. And we made $5,000 in under 30 days. Now this one, I think we got lucky on this one because this is a really short time frame. Sometimes foreclosures can take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. But this is the shorter term opportunity with notes. Like if you don't want to flip houses, you could flip notes and you could do it with non-performing because you can get big payouts in short amount of times. And I'm going to show you a case study from one of my colleagues, Jay, who lives in Indiana. And this home is in Fort Wayne, Indiana, valued at about $145,000. The legal balance on the note was $85,000. Now he doesn't pay $85,000. He gets it at a discount. So he's purchasing for $57,500. Now his timeline is a little bit longer. The previous lender had started the foreclosure. He buys it in August and he finishes the foreclosure process in about 2 months. It sells at the courthouse steps and he gets the full payoff of $85,476. So after about 2 months, he makes almost $28,000. Now he had to finish the foreclosure process, but the note owner before him pretty much did 80% of the work. So again, non-performing can get you more shorter term returns. Performing are more intended for longer term cash flow returns. But I also want to show you this example, because another non-performing strategy that is done by my colleague, Sophia Jones, she buys notes that are historically long-term late, like 10 years they haven't paid. She buys them at a deep discount because these people people haven't paid in 10 years, very little confidence that they're going to start paying. But she has an amazing ability to call up the borrowers and work with them to get them on a new payment plan or get them to start paying again. So she might modify the terms. She might say, okay, well, your payment used to be 1,000. How about we do 700? We can modify the loan. We can extend out the payments. And when she gets them back paying again, well, now this note is considered, it's actually cash flowing. She bought it at a deep discount, but now it's cash flowing. And after a certain seasoning period, let's say they make 12 months of payments, she could go and sell that note at an increased value because now she has payment history. And so she is increasing the value of these notes substantially by getting the borrowers to pay again. So her strategy is different. When she looks at the picture on Google Maps, she likes to see a flag in the yard, flowers. She wants to see pride of ownership in the home because that tells her that these people want to stay in the house and they love living there. And so that's just a whole, another strategy that you can take. It doesn't always have to be foreclosures and kicking people out and, divorce cases like I had. You could develop a strategy where you talk to the borrowers and get them on a new payment plan and really work with them. And then your note is worth way more at the end. So why do I invest in notes? One, I wanted to leave a legacy. My notes, I have bought anywhere from 4-year notes to 28-year notes. So I'm going to get some of these cash flows for the next 28 years, potentially. And the reason that's important is because both me and my husband, our parents are baby boomers. And so in the next 20 years, we're probably going to have to take care of one of them, one set of them, or multiple of them. And so I want to be prepared. Like my dad could barely afford to retire. I want to make sure that I'm positioned to help take care of him for as long as he lives. And notes are allowing me to do that because they're giving me this long-term cash flow stream that's going to be there in the future. The other thing we like to do that notes is funding is charity trips. So we travel throughout Latin America with an organization called Share the Love that gives wheelchairs to people in need, gives the gift of mobility to small villages throughout Latin America. So those are some of the reasons that I love note investing. It's creating a cash flow that just is going to fund my family's legacy, my legacy that I leave to my daughter and the people whose lives we affect. Now, let's talk about the third pillar. Let's talk about preparation. Because a lot of people say, well, Emily, how did you learn all of this? Like, how'd you buy so many notes? It's only been less than a year. And you're right. But Robert Kiyosaki, let's go back to his quote. The most important word in the world of money is cash flow. And the second most important word is leverage. So I have leveraged to the max the education and group that I've been introduced to through KW Wealth. And that group is called Note School. And so Eddie Speed, this is a really goofy picture of him, but he presented at our KW Wealth Mastermind in Austin. And he is Brett Tanner's note mentor. So Brett, like I said, leads KW Wealth. He's Gary Keller's right-hand investor. They're putting funds together. They do investments together. Brett learned notes from Eddie. which in my mind says, I want to learn notes from Eddie. And so Eddie came in, he talked about Note School. Note School and him and his team have completed over 50,000 note transactions, over 3 billion in volume, 6,000 deals just in the last 3 years. And they have over 2,000 students in their group. And so I invested in education to learn about notes and to dive into notes. And the other thing that Note School offers is a note broker. Now, you don't have to go to Note School to find inventory of notes. You can actually go on public websites right now, and I'll put them in the chat here at the end when we're doing Q&A. But you can go on public websites today and you can buy notes, which I never knew about before last year, which is crazy. So Note School offers the education and the mentoring and the inventory of notes if you choose to follow that path. I want to show you an example of a list of notes. So this was an insider deal that Eddie and his team got. 40 notes were for sale from the same seller. And I got 11 of them in my inbox to look at. So I took those 11 and I ran them through my criteria. I'd already been through education. we had set up our criteria. We did our due diligence and we said, okay, I'm going to buy these 5. But there were 2 others that we really liked. We only had enough money to buy 5 of them. And so did you know you could wholesale a note? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term wholesaling, but you can wholesale a house, and investors do it all the time. Well, you can wholesale a note, meaning I could buy a note for $95,000. I could sell it to you for $100,000, but I don't actually buy the note. I just get the $5,000 referral fee, or, the $5,000 finder's fee. So we wholesaled 2 of the notes on the list to my father-in-law. Now, we gave him a little bit of a discount. It wasn't a $5,000 wholesale fee per note, but we still made money on wholesaling him notes. And what's really cool about notes, which when I talk to Chad, it sounds like the average home price in your market is much higher than what it is in DFW, but notes have a lot of solutions for investors with smaller amounts. So let's look at this particular set of notes. 31 out of the 40 were under 50,000 and 17 were under 25,000. Now I bought a $5,000 note. I bought a $35,000 note. I bought a 45. We bought a 16,000. What's super cool about notes is that the affordability is there. And that Fort Lauderdale house is a perfect example. That home is worth $750,000. I can't afford to buy that house, but the mortgage on it was only $120,000. And so I could buy a $120,000 mortgage, and if they stop paying, I get that $750,000 house. Those are the kind of deals that I like, and that's what you can get with notes. You can get affordable investments backed by real estate. So one of the things that Note School teaches us is how to analyze the notes and to set our criteria. And so the 3 things that we really look at personally when we're looking at buying a note, we look at the payment history. Has the borrower paid on time? And this is really for performing notes. Has the borrower paid on time? How is the house? What's the house worth? And the title report. So the title report is going to show you if there are any additional liens on the house. Make sure you're buying a first position mortgage. So those are the 3 things that we really look at when we are buying notes. And so this is a map of all the notes that we have bought so far. We've bought 16. 1 has sold off. That non-performing sold off. But overall, I have never been to any of these houses. And I don't plan to. If something goes wrong, I will pay somebody in that market to go drive by that house. And so this is an investing strategy you can do from anywhere in the world. You could be in Hawaii and own a note in Texas or Florida or Georgia or South Carolina, and you would be in the exact same remote position that I'm in. I'm not going to these properties. I just collect the payments and it's all done. You're like, instead of flipping houses, you're flipping money. And it's really, really cool. Now, I copied my deposits from the loan servicer that I use. So I use Allied Loan Servicing. And you can see that literally every couple of days, I'm making money. I'm making money while I sleep, whether I am traveling, whether I'm working, whether I'm visiting family. This money is coming in direct deposit every few days from the notes that we've purchased. And so in the past 3 months, we've gotten up to about almost 23,000 in income from these notes, plus the 5K that I made on the non-performing. So in the past 90 days, I've made almost $28,000 in what I would kind of consider passive income from our note investing. And that allows us, another hobby we have is general aviation. So that kind of also funds some of our flights in our little 4-seater airplane. So let's do a quick recap. What I just showed you was how notes can create cash flow for the long term or in the short term. And this strategy works best for somebody looking to build up the cash flow either in their retirement account or their personal life. And the reason that now is a great time to invest in notes is because a lot of the other investment strategies, like rentals, for example, at least in our market, the cash flow has slimmed down. I invest in single family, I invest in multifamily, and what used to cash flow at 6, 7, 8% is now cash flowing at 0 to 1% in some of the asset classes. And so notes is a great complement to my portfolio because these performing notes that I'm buying, they're cash flowing every single month. And most investors pick one strategy and they can only benefit when that market is up. With notes, you have the knowledge to really benefit in any type of market. If the market's not doing well, you could go to non-performing. If the market is doing well, you can go to performing. You can benefit from any type of market with notes and kind of just that inherent knowledge that you can gain. And so think about what would investments like this do for your finances. And so one of the most common questions I get is, Emily, can you help me get started with note investing? And the answer is yes. But the only thing I can suggest is to follow the same path that I took. And the path that I took was going through some note school classes. Now, the first one is free, it's virtual, and it's a 2-hour implementation session. It's called Rich Rewards in Notes. The next one is just after Christmas. It's Wednesday, December 27th from 11 to 1 Central, which I know this is way early for you. This is, I believe, 7 a.m. This is 7 to 9 a.m. Hawaii time. You could have it on in the background. This is Note School's schedule, so I don't get to change this. But basically, by attending this implementation session, you get quite a few gifts. So you get these process maps, which line out the process step by step on note investing. Like, what do you need to do to sell a partial? What do you need to do to buy a performing note? Things like that. You're going to get the book, What You Need to Know to Protect and Grow Your Assets as a Mortgage Note Investor, written by Eddie Speed. You're going to get the partial calculator tool, which is an Excel spreadsheet that will allow you to plug in a partial and see really firsthand how powerful it can be to the investor, to the main investor. It's a win-win. It's powerful to both sides, but to the active investor, it's an amazing wealth building tool for long term. And then the retirement white paper, why partials are a game changer for your self-directed IRA. And one common question I get is, are there any tax advantages to notes? And the answer is really no. Like, it is, you make interest and you get taxed on the interest income, which is why a lot of people invest in notes through their retirement accounts. So if it's a Roth, you'll never have to pay taxes on those gains. If it's a traditional retirement account, You are deferring the taxes. But bought with cash, you don't get depreciation. There isn't those kind of advantages to notes. So that's why a lot of people do it with retirement funds. And so you have a couple of different options. My name's Emily. My husband's name's Adam. Our company is A&E Real Estate Group. It's very creative. But after kind of what you've learned today, you don't have to take any action. You can say, you know what, notes aren't for me. I'm not interested. Thanks. Good information, but no thanks. You can invest passively in notes. So we are constantly buying and selling partials. And so if you just want to buy a partial note, if you say, you know what, I'm not interested in learning the whole business, I'm not interested in owning 20 or 30 years of investment, I just want to own, say, 8 to 10 years, 8 to 12 years, and I'm good with that. We have partials that we sell. I still think you should do some of the note school education, because you'll get, if you're going to invest 50,000 plus into any deal, I think it's important to get more knowledgeable than a 45-minute class on what you're investing in. You also have the option to be the active note investor. Like, you can do what I do. You can set up the deals that I've done. And in that case, Note School offers additional education and training and mentoring opportunities. And I'm happy to talk one-on-one with you if you think that might be for you. So this is the QR code to sign up for it. If you are not available December 27th at 7 a.m., it is done every 2 weeks. And so the next one would be January 10th, every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. And then if the QR code doesn't work for some reason, noteschool.com/wealth is the direct link. So picture a day when your phone dings and it's that first deposit from your note investment. Picture a day when your partner comes to you and says, let's take that dream vacation. Picture a day when you have the freedom to live life on your own terms. Whether you have never invested before, whether you have a small portfolio, or whether you are a seasoned investor, note investing can truly take your portfolio to the next level. I have one final thought to share. My dad was finally able to retire, and for years, the markets went up until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, he was reminded again that his nest egg was completely out of his control. He finally started asking me and my husband about our investments. And I am so proud to say that at 72 years old, my dad made his first alternative investment of his life last year into real estate. It took him 72 years to decide to do something different, but it's the decision to change and to do something different from the status quo that's the secret to success and the first step to your financial freedom. You deserve financial freedom where you don't have to worry if the markets are up or down. You deserve financial freedom where there's no limit to the quality time you can spend with your family. And you deserve financial freedom where you can live every day to the fullest. You deserve financial freedom. And I know that notes can help get you there. So at this point, I want to open it up to Q&A. I can't see people's faces. So chat, and I don't see anything in the chat, but we are open for Q&A. We've got a couple minutes left. That was a lot of information. And I want you to feel free to reach out to me if you have questions, if you think, I don't know what, I think I want to go to Note School, but I don't know. I would love to have a personal conversation with you.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, super educational. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm taking all kinds of notes and what have you. So that was really good. I do have a few questions. Number one is, you mentioned that you purchase using your retirement account and suggested the same for others. Do you ever purchase with cash, or do you avoid that?
I do. So actually, we've purchased most of our notes with cash. Only a few have been with my retirement account. And it's because, my husband and I are full-time, we're self-employed. full time. Real estate investors, like that's our thing. And I need my investments to cash flow. So this was just kind of a quick personal story. End of last year, going through KW Wealth trainings, and I realized that 95% of our investable money was in multifamily apartment complexes. And there was just kind of the talk at KW Wealth, like you need to be a little bit more diversified than that. And so we've taken a chunk of our net worth, of our investable money, and we said, you know what? I need to get it out of multifamily and I need to get into something more that cash flows more. And so you did use that cash to buy notes, because that is literally helping pay for, the flight to family reunion and all the other, mortgage, groceries, things like that. So we use our notes in our personal side and our retirement account.
So you are making a conscious decision based on where that money is being pulled from, depending on the performance or the perceived or future performance of that note.
Yep.
Okay. Next question is, what happens if you own a note and there's subordinate financing that is placed on it, whether it be a second or lien, some sort of other thing? I know that there's it's not like you can prevent that necessarily, but what do you do in those kind of circumstances?
So I have notes where there are second liens, but I'm the first position. So that's what I want to see. And if I do have a second, like I have one house where I own the first and the second, but basically as the first position lender, I almost don't care what the second position is, because if it does go to foreclosure, I get paid first.
Okay. Is there ever a situation where you personally, because you mentioned your strategy of you own the home and you wanted to be the seller and the lender, which I've heard Brett Tanner speak about many times, which I think is brilliant if you have the ability to do so. Have you ever had a mortgage on it and you still wanted to do that? Because then there's a potential issue with the note being called due or what have you. Has that ever come about, and is there workarounds to that?
Yes. So actually the owner finance example that I showed you, where I owned it since 2016 and I sold it owner financing, I still have a $45,000 mortgage on that house. And so that loan remained in the first position. So technically, yeah, my seller finance note is in second position, but my first position note, I'm also in control of, and it's on auto pay basically. So, yep, that you can do that. It's called a wrap. I'm wrapping a note. I have a small note and then I wrap a big one around it. But yeah, you can absolutely do that.
Do you or had you examined your existing note to ensure that there's no clause in there that accelerates the mortgage as a result of, because some are tricky
Yeah.
where it's like you can't do seller financing. Do you look at that, and are you cautious of that?
So yes, I do look at that. And that is what the industry term is, the due on sale clause. And so most loans have it, and this loan did have it as well. And so basically, one, it's only $45,000. So if my lender did call it due, I know that I could pull together $45,000 to pay it off. So one, that makes me feel really comfortable. Two, this lender actually did find out that I sold the house because there was a glitch in the insurance where I forgot to send them the new insurance, because the insurance now had them and me listed as additional insured with the new homeowner. And so they emailed me and they said, we got a notice of cancellation for the insurance. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I forgot to send that to them. So I sent them the new insurance. So now they know I've sold the home because I'm no longer listed as the owner. And they just said, okay, thank you. So they chose not to call it due. Now the note rate's only 5%, but I honestly don't think that a lot of the banks have the resources to say, well, I want to foreclose on you because you sold it, or I'm going to call it due. Like in my case, they haven't called it due yet and they know about it.
That's helpful. I would imagine, I come from mortgage and banking too. I would imagine that they're looking at non-performance to take action, not the ones that are
Mhm.
performing take action on, is what I would assume. But my last question, if anyone else wants to ask afterwards, is what is the, you mentioned Note School, which I think is awesome. I want to look into that further too. What is the, I'm assuming there's a cost after that first class. What is the cost of Note School?
Absolutely. So after that first class, there's a 3-day note investing boot camp. And that one is $600. And so to me, so they take each of the 3 days and they talk about each pillar on a day. So one day is performing, one day is non-performing, and one day is creative financing or owner financing. And so if you think like, I want to invest in notes, that $600 3-day course is probably the best value. Now, if you say, I want to go all into notes like this and utilize it as an investing strategy for the next 20 years of my life, which is kind of the mentality I had. Note School, the full-blown mentoring, is anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. Robert Kiyosaki has a quote that says, formal education will get you a job. Specialized education will make you a fortune. And that's essentially what I've lived by the past 10 years. So twice now, in my journey, I have paid for specialized education, notes being one of them. And I already see, and I'm going to present this at the next KW Wealth Mastermind, because with the partials that we've sold, we are literally going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars with having probably less than $10,000 invested, because we've done the partial strategy so much. And so even though it's an investment in education, if you say that, this is going to be part of my investing strategy for the long term, and that's why I'm happy to have a one-on-one, and it's not for everybody. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody should go to full-blown Note School, but happy to have that conversation and open and honest.
It's amazing. The class was super, super helpful. Does anyone else have any questions for her?
I do. Yeah. Hey, aloha, Emily. This is Alan. Thanks so much. This has been a lot of great information. As you manage your life, do you still have segments of doing your own active real estate outside of notes? And like, are you like doing any kind of, real estate stuff? Or I think you had mentioned you have, like, how do you split your life in terms of,
Yep.
time and time you dedicate to like these varying activities of your life and kids and all that other kind of fun stuff?
Good question. So I actually am no longer in production. And so that has taken a great time burden off of my plate. I focus on, I'm a wealth ambassador. I lead the culture in our office, and I teach. And so I am essentially a full-time investor. Now, my husband and our main business before this was apartment complexes. And so we own 6 apartment complexes with groups of people. And that is our full-time job, to make sure that those apartment complexes are managed well. The business plans are implemented, things like that. So our full-time job is really around multifamily, but Notes is kind of that, like, we spent some time learning, and now we just buy, and we're essentially flipping money. We're flipping notes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you ever see, Emily, where do you see that pathway where notes can soon overtake your investment on the multifamily or any other things that you were doing? Because I feel like it can grow and multiply and compound if you do it the right way and you have a good grasp and understanding of it.
Absolutely. And our goal is really, like, we've already transitioned about 20% of our investable money into notes. So we still have about almost 80% in multifamily. And I really want to get that a little bit more even. But like you said, the notes have such a quick reinvestment strategy that they grow faster. So my apartment complexes, I may invest 100,000, but I'm not going to get it back for 5 years. Whereas a note, I'm getting money every month, and I can reinvest much, much quicker. And so Brett, and Chad, you may have seen this when you went to one of Brett's classes, where he sends out this $50 million net worth plan where he wants all agents to strive for a $50 million net worth. And notes are built into that spreadsheet. Like note purchase 1, note purchase 2, note purchase 3, because he knows how powerful those are to building wealth.
Emily, add-on question. You know, hindsight is always 2020. So picture yourself as one of us who's just kind of hearing about this, you know, for the first time, you know, and projecting yourself backwards. You know, what are some of the things that you think you may have done differently, knowing what you know now back to when you got started?
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have sold. I had 11 rentals at the most. And knowing what I know now, I should have sold them all owner financing, because when you own the note, like I said, I could have made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest by holding those notes. So I probably wouldn't have sold the single families. I would have done more creative financing, and meaning like owner financing, like not necessarily always going to the bank. Those are some of the things that I think are really at the top of my mind today. And I teach another class about creative financing, more so for agents that are in markets with homes valued at 100, 200, 300,000, but still could be applicable. And I'm happy to share that recording with you. And then one thing that I have realized a lot in the past year that I'm like fully grasping still is how much I can use other people's money, OPM, other people's money, in the notes space. And so we've bought 15 notes, and half of them I have used other people's, I've either sold as partials and recapitalized, or I've used other people's money to buy those notes. And that is a big mindset shift. Like, you don't always have to have the money. You can use other people's money. And as long as there is a spread, like, I'll give you an example. I borrowed $250,000 from one of my passive investors at 7% interest. I can take that $250,000 and I went and bought 4 notes with it. And so now, and my return on those notes are between 11 and 12%. And so I get to profit the spread, the difference between 12 and 7. I profit that every month, and I just pay off my passive investor. And so that has been a huge realization. And one of the reasons we've been able to buy 14 notes is because we've kind of found the hack. And this is taught in note school. Like, I benchmarked people in note school who are doing this. But you can use other people's money to buy notes and invest in notes. Or like with the partial, I use somebody else's money to recapitalize and reinvest those funds, which is, when you see the math, it's just mind blowing.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I
Joanne?
do. How do you keep track of all the notes and all the money?
Yep.
Do you do your own bookkeeping, or?
Great question. So the loan servicer breaks all the payments down into principal and interest. So I don't have to do that. Like, every payment that comes through, I get a report that says principal and interest. I do have a virtual assistant that runs my QuickBooks. And then she gets access to the reports. And so in QuickBooks, every single payment gets split up between principal and interest. But the loan servicer does all that work. Like, I'm not managing the amortization table. I'm not guessing. They manage all of that for me. And that is it's usually about $20 a month per loan.
Well, Emily, I appreciate it. I know we went over, so thank you so much for allowing us that time. Super enlightening. I told Jewel to get me registered for the December 27th class. It sounds super fun. I'm going to post this, as I'd mentioned, this recording on our internal page, and encourage everyone to reach out. And I look forward to the creative financing one. Sounds fun too. I'd love to schedule that with you for the first quarter. But super great class. Greatly
you.
appreciate your time, and we look forward to hopefully speaking with you and working with you very soon.
Great. Thank you all for your time today, and thank you for staying with us a few minutes over.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Aloha.
Bye, Emily.
Happy
Hello.